Welcome to another edition of the MOAA Public Affairs and Communication Professional Virtual Chapter Spotlight Interview Series. And with this conversation, we are joined by MOAA's Director of Government Relations for Military, Family, and Survivor Policy, Jen Goodale, and MOAA's Director of Government Relations for Currently Serving Affairs, Cory Titus. Good morning, Cory and Jen.
Good morning.
Morning, Linc.
Right, let's get into it. Can you both share a bit more about your careers? We'll start with you, Jen, and then Cory, you're next.
Sure. Thanks, Linc. Really appreciate the opportunity. Well, I came to MOAA back in 2013 because of a Marine Corps connection. I served for 7 years on active duty in the Marine Corps, got out in 2009, and I married a Marine. So when we PCSed to the area, I got in with MOAA. And it's taken me a while to find my place here in the organization, but the government relations team accepted me back in 2021, and I've been enjoying this position ever since.
Over to you, Cory.
Yep, thanks. I came to MOAA by way of the Army. I did 7 years as an infantry, then signal officer. I was branch detailed for those Army folks that know about that. And then time to get out, went back to school on the post 9/11 GI Bill, which MOAA helped pass, and I didn't know about it at the time. And then from there, an internship at MOAA turned into them keeping me around, the typical DC career path.
As MOAA's Director of Government Relations for Military, Family, and Survivor Policy, Jen, that's you, and then we'll get over to you, Cory. You are MOAA's Director of Government Relations for Currently Serving Affairs. Tell us a little bit about your duties, daily basis.
Yeah, well, each day is unique and different as every career path. But primarily we focus on, or in my portfolio, advocating for things like spouse employment opportunities for those in the currently serving community, childcare. When it comes to the survivor community, we want to make sure that they receive the benefits that they earned through their service members' death. And so there's a lot of well-intentioned people on the Hill who introduce a lot of pieces of legislation. And so our job is to be aware of those pieces of legislation and try to advance the ones that we support. Just simply educate congressional members who don't have the understanding of what it means to be a service member or a military family member. And like going to the Hill, we do a lot of meetings. We do work with coalitions, so we work across the military and veteran service organizations, or MSO and VSO space. And Cory can tell you a little bit more about the military coalition, which is something we're a part of.
Yep. Jen hit it. The nuts and bolts are the same for both of our portfolios. Just the issues we talk about on the Hill tend to be different. But yeah, Jen hit on that coalition building aspect of our jobs that's so important. And just like in the military, you don't do anything alone. And we rely heavily on the military coalition. And for those that aren't aware, that is a group of 35 military and veterans organizations that come together, meet on a regular basis to share priorities, identify opportunities for collective advancement, and then just really reach like crosstalk to make sure we have that holistic uh, operational environment understanding.
Writ large, how's business on the Hill?
Well, it's a interesting time, and that's really how it is at the beginning of every administration that you're coming into. So we're dealing with the turnover, building those new relationships as they come. And then this year is also unique because there's the added in budget reconciliation process as well. So there's a lot going on, and we're trying to do that stuff as well as the everyday stuff like appropriations and the NDA.
I have to honestly ask, Cory and Jen, are your hours genuinely 9 to 5, or with the Hill, is it beyond 9 to 5? Talk about when you were really up on the Hill.
Well, honestly, the up on the Hill part is typically 9 to 5, unless there's some sort of an event, and there's always an event. So a big part of our job is just simply networking, knowing who's staffing these congressional members and making sure they're the one, you're the one that they call when they need something. So that just is a lot of FaceTime. But realistically, when you've got a hearing start, the reconciliation markup being started at 1 a.m., those are things that we track. So it's like every day you're on Twitter, you're checking your email first thing, the early bird, pops in your inbox at 06. That's what you're reading.
Exactly. And on top of that, there's the very much we're following the staffer's pace of life as well. So if they have a hearing the next morning and they're scrambling to get questions out at 7 at night, we're checking that and doing our best to help them out with some ideas about what they can conduct oversight of.
You periodically host the MOAA Advocacy Update. Tell us about the podcast.
It was Cory's idea, so I'll let him take this one.
Oh, it's the seed was mine, but Jen and I started it together along with Mike Barone as our senior multimedia director. And the idea was that we didn't have a strong video presence on YouTube, and that was something that we wanted to begin to communicate directly with our community, our members on just what things are going on, what's going on in the Hill, what's moving, what they can help with, and do it in a quick little snippet.
It's evolved over time. He said quick. We've only recently, within the last 6 months, gotten to quick. Our original video started off at 8 to 10 minutes. Now our goal is anything under 3 minutes. And we know that currently serving, especially, they're busy, whether they're PCSing or just trying to, enroll their kids in a new school or whatever. They don't have time to digest a 10-minute video. But if they can just catch, oh, that topic is about BAH, and that's important to me. We want to hit them with a 30-second clip that will keep them engaged and get them to act on our Legislative Action Center.
You're getting a lot of hits on LinkedIn, Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's growing over time and it has evolved. So that's as you know from your background, and we'll learn with this, you need to do that constant evolution. And there's a drumbeat that goes along with it of getting it up, pushing it out. And we're always working with our comms team to find new and creative ways to hit the right people.
Sure.
Yeah, and we're trying to expand. Just Cory and I love talking to each other, but not everybody wants to watch just us talk to each other. So we're trying to bring in new folks. We got the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps to come and do a longer segment with us. We recently were in Senator Kane's office to talk about his leadership on the Military Spouse Hiring Act. So we really do want to grow the platform in a strategic way.
For 2025, what are the top MOAA legislative priorities?
I'm just going to take this and then I'll pass it over to Cory for his currently serving one. But in the military family and survivor portfolio, we are working on the Military Spouse Hiring Act. That would add a target group under the existing work opportunity tax credit to incentivize businesses to hire more military spouses. Under the currently serving healthcare portfolio, we're working on improving MHS access, and that's through the development of a potential feedback tool, so that military families, when they aren't meeting the access standards to get those appointments within the 30-day window or to be referred out, they have a platform that all of that information can be collected at the DHA level so that they can actually influence change. In the caregiver space, so this is on the veteran healthcare space, which is run by Renee Campos. She's working on a bill called Veteran Caregivers Reeducation, Reemployment, and Retirement. So we know that caregivers really struggle when their caregiving duties are done to get back into the workplace and to save for retirement, because they're right now receiving a tax-free stipend from the VA under a specific program. So this is it's a really low-cost bill. It's to explore opportunities to support this community. And actually, I'm gonna let Cory talk about the veteran and the currently serving one, because those are kind of both his.
Yep. So on the veteran benefits side, the genesis of the Ending the Wait report, the issue we brought to the Hill, that's something I started while I was still managing the veterans benefits portfolio. Since then, Jeff Goldberg has joined our team and been running with that. But what that is after the PACT Act, it did a lot. It cleared the backlog for millions of veterans, but the work's not all done. There are still gaps in the current presumptive process that need to be filled. And what the ending the wait report was, it was a post-PACT Act blueprint. So it looked at how can we make sure that we're never in this situation again, where our country needs a $280 billion bill into law. And that just lays out the framework. And we're communicating that with the Hill, getting the message out as we just released that report at the end of last year. And then on the currently serving side, what we're doing is trying to continue the progress we've made on unaccompanied housing. And what we've saw in the 2024 and 2025 NDA is that the House and Senate Armed Services Committees did a lot in this space. They looking at the right information, they're working to detangle all the different funding streams. Now we need to make sure that we're helping them maintain the momentum because there's still a multi-billion-dollar backlog in maintenance and new buildings that need to happen because some of them are just in terrible condition. And mobily is the way to do that is by making sure the unaccompanied housing conditions report that they required become publicly available. And this would make sure that we can see down to the installation level, what's the condition of all the barracks and what the plan is. Because they have it laid out in the future about, all right, we're going to take care of this structure in 2028, this one in 2030. But that information is not necessarily making it to the office or so the district office or the state senator's level. And we want to make sure that we're helping making sure that information is that they're aware of that so that we can keep getting the money to the right place to support the junior enlisted.
I just want to state that those are our top priorities per portfolio. That doesn't mean we're not working on anything else. There are a million other things that we're tracking. So the Major Richard Starr Act with reconciliation, we were on the Hill for a press conference about the 90-10 loophole. I'm working plenty of bills in the survivor space. So those are the big topics that we covered during our advocacy in action, but we are certainly not just focused on one bill each.
Understand. Cory, over to the housing. You were coming in at a figure of, what was it, 160, what is it?
It was over $130 billion backlog.
130 backlog. Okay. And your thought is that, ooh, if this information is out there openly available, it's going to be paid attention to, and hence you could garner more support to get this backlog reduced?
Yes. So imagine you're in a district with a military base.
Yeah.
You know the barracks surveyed, you've heard the reports, but actually having that data that, 30% of the barracks or dormitories in my district, service members can't or shouldn't be living in.
Yeah.
And the Air Force, Army, Marine Corps, Navy is scheduled to get this money request this money in 2028. I'm going to make sure that that money is making it to my district. And having that awareness, having that understanding is critical. If they don't have that information, how do they conduct oversight as effective lawmakers?
Got it. In April this year, MOAA conducted the annual Advocacy in Action event, AIA 2025, bringing members from across the nation to Washington, D.C. Any reflections on AIA 2025?
Well, I mean, I always call this Christmas for advocates. So this is one of my favorite times of the year, getting to bring in all of our members from across the country and help connect them with their lawmakers. It's always a little crazy. It's wild. Trying to get into the offices and it's a lot of logistics to handle, but it's a lot of fun too. And making those connections, building the MOAA brand reputation, the reputation we have for expertise, being knowledgeable on all the topics, that goes a long way. And that pays dividends for us down the line when we're coming back in, having these conversations with each of the offices, working to advance us. That sets a foundation that we build on for the rest of the year.
And I got to say, we used a new platform this year, and it really improved the feedback that we were getting from our MOAA members who were conducting these meetings, to the tune of we've got at least we're closing in on 20 new co-sponsors for the Military Spouse Hiring Act, 19 of which had meetings with MOAA members. So if that doesn't prove that it's helpful and it's working, I don't know what would.
Let's get over to the Richard Starr Act. MOAA's been onto it for a long time. as with the other VSOs. A 19 March 2025 update on the MOAA homepage by Sean Shanahan says, quote, lawmakers in both the Senate and House recently reintroduced the Major Richard Starr Act, a bill which would provide combat injured retirees with their full earned benefits, end quote. Any further update on passage of the Richard Starr Act?
So right now, the game plan for Richard Starr is building that pressure back again. We did a great job in the 118th Congress, increasing lawmaker awareness, making it something that leadership in the House and Senate couldn't ignore. And that's what we're trying to get back to, of putting them in a position where you need to answer this. Our community needs this. This needs this to be addressed. And we're made a lot of progress really, really quickly. And we need to make sure that we're getting those co-sponsors on from last year.
Yeah, so we were just on the Hill with Wounded Warrior Project and a few other of the VSOs last week for a press conference. And Senator Blumenthal joined that press conference and told the individuals, we're going to get this passed. And it doesn't, here's the thing that I think it's important to have people that co-sponsor. We'd love to see that there are 70 Senate co-sponsors for this. In the end, it doesn't matter. If they don't ever hold a vote, it really, like, the co-sponsorship doesn't pass a bill. It certainly helps get it attention. But what we need to do, and what we're part of a Starr Act working group, and these guys have been tracking it for a long time. They're looking for any avenue to get this across the finish line. So I promise you it's being worked from every angle.
Let's try it this way. Is it the case that the Starr Act has had the floor vote, both House and Senate, for a number of really years, but the pay-go is how are you going to pay for it the problem?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Okay. You talked about this, Cory, and boy, you were on this one. You were too, Jen. On 10 August 2022, the president signed the Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson honoring our promise to address Comprehensive Toxics Act of 2022, the PACT Act, and that was into U.S. federal law that date, expanding VA health care for benefits for veterans exposed to toxic substances and widening eligibility for VA care and benefits for veterans exposed to burn pits, Agent Orange, and other toxic exposures. So tell us more about MOAA's role in passage of that PACT Act. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Linc. Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that it takes an entire community to get a bill of that magnitude across the finish line. It most certainly deserves to be on stage with the president. And when it was signed, and General Atkins was up there representing MOAA because of the critical role we had in getting that across the line. And that's one of those things that it started early. It took years, and the foundation was laid way back when. And where it really started was after the Blue Water Navy and the three presumptions from Agent Orange were included in the 21 NDAA. We just said, we can't keep on doing this, kind of playing whack-a-mole with different conditions as they came up. And the entire MSO and VSO community came together and said, we're going for it. We need to pass comprehensive toxic exposure reform. And that's when we began with, there's many different iterations of the bill, but you came together, we stuck to that core messaging, we pushed our version of what we thought was the right bill, and over time, everybody has their input. Conditions got added, the framework changed, but ultimately that core group of MSOs and VSOs we worked with continue to advocate, hit the ground, sometimes weeks on end on the Hill, pushing the message, getting it across, and making sure that we had the on-the-ground support from the rank and file lawmakers, getting the leadership connected, working with the professional staff on the House and Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, and a little bit of John Stewart always helps. And bringing all those things together made for a tremendous change, probably the biggest bill in half a century to pass for veterans legislation.
It wasn't just in the committee rooms of the House and Senate, it was on the steps, literally.
Yes. And after our bill got filibustered, essentially, and that's what it took, that final pressure of veterans spending all night out on the Capitol steps saying, we're not going away, putting that pressure on lawmakers. And it was pulling all that together is what got across the finish line.
Over to the PACT Act, Cory. Let's touch this. How's the implementation since passage going?
It's going. And
Okay.
that's the hard part. It's not just enough to pass the bill. You need to make sure it gets implemented correctly. And
Yeah.
you nailed it. That's one of the critical things that we're watching incredibly closely.
Okay.
And with the last administration, what you saw was there were timelines and gates for access. The VA needed to do uh, access to increase access to certain populations of veterans within the timeline. And uh, the secretary waived that, brought everybody in, which gave veterans a lot more access a lot faster, but also increased the claims backlog over time and also had a toll on wait time. So those are the two things that we're looking at, just making sure that the access to healthcare there and that the claims are going down. And fortunately, we're seeing just through the hard work of everyone at the VA and just the natural decline in number of claims, we're heading in the right direction. So now making sure that we have that healthcare accessibility, that's critical.
Indeed, it can be said that the PACT Act is a game changer for veterans.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, and for survivors, because survivors were included in those, and unfortunately, they overestimated the number of survivors that would be filing these claims, and that has had an impact on some legislation that we're currently working by expanding the pool of potentially eligible recipients of, let's say, DIC, dependency and indemnity compensation. So, but we're always pleased when small communities like military surviving spouses are included in the conversation and included in the ultimate bill, because so often they're not overlooked because people don't care about them. They're overlooked because people forget about them.
That's where the implementation piece is the communication, the outreach is so important. It needs to be done through so many different mediums to make sure that we're hitting the dispersed veteran and survivor population because they don't always have ties to the community the way you do in uniform.
Right.
Jen and Cory, could it be said that the PACT Act as legislation for veterans is something that set the gold standard? It's really a gold standard for bipartisan legislative advocacy in this decade, even beyond?
Yeah, that's a great point, especially in these divisive times. That was something where House and Senate, Republicans and Democrats were all working together. They had different ideas about that, but ultimately, when it came time, they put aside partisanship and did what was best for the veterans and passed the PACT Act.
And Link, you'll hear the Armed Services Committees talk often, the leadership say that the National Defense Authorization Act, the passage of that for the last 62 years, shows that yes, bipartisanship is still alive and well, and that's one of the Senate and the House Armed Services Committees do really work together to ensure that service members and their families are taken care of. So I would say that's enough. It's not the PACT Act by any means, but every year we this is called a must-pass bill.
Over to a whole nother subject. MOAA will be hosting the Total Force Plus conference, now scheduled 28-29 October, National Harbor, Maryland. Tell us more about Total Force Plus.
Yeah, so when General Kelly came to MOAA, he threw out an idea of how do we connect with the currently serving, with the veteran community, and really tell them who we are and what we're about. We know that our fellow associations, like the Association of the United States Army, or just Sea, Air, and Space, they've got lots of different conferences, which are wonderful events, but they usually dedicate like a Thursday afternoon at 3:30 to have a discussion about personnel and military families. And and he was invited to those conferences in the past. He has spoken at an Air Force conference. And he's like, I'm the last one on the stage. There's like three people in the room. No one's really talking about this like it's important. So he said, what if we have a conference that's solely focused on what MOAA does, which is protecting service earned benefits. So this is a great opportunity to address some of the issues that have there. None of these issues are new. Everything, PCS frequency, BAH not keeping pace, military spouse employment, survivor benefits lagging. All of those things are not new issues. But we would love to bring the right people into the room to what we're calling advanced solutions. We've got Facebook to get on and complain about the issues. What we want to do is bring people together. We want to have decision makers in the room, corporations that might have the right solution, whether it's technology or something else, to address the issue and see if we can't make that happen, or at least get the conversation started.
In closing, the floor is yours. Anything else you would like to spotlight about MOAA and MOAA legislative affairs?
The last thing that I want to kind of put stop was the importance of grassroots people on the ground, individual volunteers and advocates in the role they play, and just the your lawmakers really care what constituents say. And I'll harken back to a moment in the PACT Act that was burned into my mind when we were doing that final push to get it across the finish line. We had advocates sitting out on the steps of Congress. We were hitting meetings, and while I was going in there, I could hear a staffer on the phone talking to a veteran who was frustrated by the outcome of the vote and sharing that as we were about to go in and sit down and talk with the staffer to talk about how we can get the PACT Act across the finish line. And it's just all that coming together, that individual pressure. We can talk all day about the policy and its merits. But if a member of Congress isn't motivated by their constituents back home, they're not going to act.
Yeah, and we're here in this DC MDW bubble, and we need to hear from you. Much like we want you to contact your lawmakers, we want you to reach out to us with any issues that you're tracking. You might think, oh, well, they're already following it because we do read the early bird and we're tracking a lot of different things. But what if no, we haven't heard of it and we've missed it and it's a big issue, or even if it's a small issue, it's impacting you. We want to know about it. We can't promise you that we're going to work on it. I can't promise you that I'm going to try to like develop legislation to solve the issue, but I will listen to you and I will at least try to address the situation. So we want to hear from you also.
Right. And the answer is not always, oh, no, it's not now. But then 6 months down the line, we're able to connect your story with something else that is happening that can give it the push it needs.
Right.
We'll close out with another question. On a daily basis, what is, with the work you do, your greatest challenge?
I think the greatest challenge in at least in this since January, so let's just stick to 2025, is not responding to headlines. There's some crazy news that comes out typically on a Friday night or a Sunday night when you can't really do anything about it. And it's in the military spouse community. I'm still an active duty spouse, so I see it all on social media. The stress is real, but right now they're just headlines. I can't lobby against a headline. I need to have actual policies, changes, or things put in place. So when the return to office mandate came down, we didn't realize what was going to happen, but we started immediately advocating for OPM to exempt military spouses from that RTO mandate. That was something that we could do. When we heard that the VA was going to slash 83,000 positions, there's nothing to advocate against. It's a headline, it's talk that we haven't seen significant cuts yet, but it's something that we're watching. And I think that gets very frustrating, not only for our MOAA members and our community, but for us as MOAA employees, because we feel it, we want to fix the situation, but there's not a situation in place to fix.
Yeah. Yeah, that balance is always hard to strike, and kind of bridging off of Jen, I would say the hardest challenge is attention. There's so much going on all the time. So when we're trying to get grassroots action, our advocates, there's so much going on that to try to break through and get them to be motivated to act. the Hill, there's so much news going on. Oftentimes, not only does the staffer have like the military veterans portfolio, but they'll have something like education or finance, a myriad of topics that require their attention. And then obviously the committee only has so much bandwidth to consider the pieces of legislation. There's only so much money. So getting the focus on RI issues is the most critical challenge that faces us every day.
Cory, Titus, Jen Goodale, thank you for joining us on the MOAA Public Affairs and Communication Professional Virtual Chapter Spotlight interview, and thank you for your service to MOAA.
Thanks
Thanks,
for yours,
Linc.
Linc.
We'll let you get back to work and have a fabulous rest of the week.
You
Thank you
too.
too.